Hi and welcome to another video from Coffee Break Languages. My name's Mark, I'm your Coffee Break teacher. In this video we're talking about language learning and language practice and trying to see the ways in which you can fit language learning into your day regardless of how busy it happens to be. We believe at Coffee Break that it's possible to fit language learning into those times of the day when you're doing something else, whether that's driving to work, having a coffee, or walking the dog or at the gym. And it's possible to fit language learning into these times and also be inspired by what you see around you to learn more of the language. So today you're coming on a walk with me in the park. So let's get going. We're heading to a park in South Ayrshire, on the Ayrshire coast, which is called Culzean. And this is in the west of Scotland, and Culzean itself is an interesting name because Culzean is written C-U-L-Z-E-A-N, but it's pronounced Culzean. Very often Scottish place names are pronounced entirely differently from what you would expect. And in this park there's lots to do, lots to see. And it's a beautiful park. There's a castle, there's a beach. In fact, there are two beaches, there are cliffs, there is a swan pond, and there are places for children to play. Now, even that sentence, or those sentences there, I'm beginning to start to think about how I can practice my languages. Thinking of the there are sentences, normally that's quite a straightforward construction in another language. So in French, il y a une plage, il y a un château, c'è una spiaggia, c'è un castello, hai un castillo, hai una playa. Es gibt einen Strand, es gibt what's a castle in German? Ein Schloss. I think it's maybe Die Schloss. I need to check that. And so, as I'm working my way through these words, I'm thinking, do I know the words in the foreign language? And do I know their gender? And am I able to use them in sentences? So, even at this stage, when I'm thinking about how I would describe where I am or what I'm doing, I can start to think about how I would say that in whichever language I'm learning. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at different things that we see around us and thinking about how we would say them in the foreign language. And you'll hopefully see some words of vocabulary appearing on the screen and also some sentences as we work our way around the park. I'm going to pull in and show you this view because it's absolutely beautiful. It's such a lovely day. And we can see out to the island of Arran and also down to Ailsa Craig, which is a very interesting place because Ailsa Craig is where most of the curling stones in the entire world come from. So there you go, a volcanic rock off the coast of Ayrshire. I've been coming here for many years, since I was a child, and it's always that first view just as you come round into the park. You see Ailsa Craig out in the sea, you see the lighthouse, and you see the park before you. You know that you're in for a great day. Now, even in that, you can start to think about the language because, as I said, I've been coming here for many years, or for 40 years. And when we use for in English in that way, very often in another language, for works differently. So, for example, in French, we use depuis plus a present tense. So, je viens ici depuis 40 ans. You would do the same in German with seit. You could do with da in Italian, and again use a present tense. You could use different ways of doing it in Spanish. You could say, I carry 40 years visiting this park. Llevo 40 años visitando este parque. Parco? That's Italian. Okay, let's go and discover the park. sometimes you come across things and if you know the word, great. Other times you have to look up a word. And when you look up a word, you might be thinking, well, will I ever need to know the word for, say, daffodil? And okay, you might never need to know the word for daffodil, but knowing it might come in handy at some point. And that's why I always say that there's never any lost knowledge. You never, every bit of knowledge that you acquire is worthwhile, because you never know when it could come in useful. I did actually know the word for daffodil, randomly, in French. It's une jonquille. And I looked it up in Italian there, and it's giunchiglia, so very similar to the French. But the Spanish is narciso, and narciso obviously linked to narcissus, and in German also linked to narcissus, Narzisse. So there you go, I've learned some new words by investigating just one word from daffodil in English, and appreciating some nice daffodils too. One of the other really important aspects is that you need to take notes. You need to take notes of the words either that you're going to look up later, or the words that you are looking up as you go about. So 2 words so far that I've been wondering about. First of all, the gender of castle in German, and the word daffodil in multiple languages. Now, some people like to take notes in a notes app. Other people like a good old-fashioned notebook. I'm a bit old school. I like a notebook. So I'm going to take a few notes as to what I'm seeing here down at the beach at Culzean. It's very often the case when you're visiting a place like this that there are information panels written, normally in English. And what I like to do is try to work out how I would explain the words on that information panel to someone who speaks the language that I'm learning. So in this case, we're looking at smuggling whiskey and wine and tobacco into the caves beneath the castle. So I would be thinking about how I can put that into more simple English, or using words that I do know if I don't know those words, and speaking about that to a speaker of Swedish or Croatian or Chinese or whatever language I'm learning. So it just goes to show that even if you're surrounded by English, there are ways to practice the foreign language that you're learning by using that English, especially when it's written in such a way for people to understand, telling stories in this kind of tourist attraction. Another great thing about visiting somewhere like this is that very often there are leaflets that you can pick up, and sometimes these leaflets are even available in the language that you're learning. So you can pick up the English one and the foreign language one and compare them at your leisure, sitting in the sunshine or with a cup of coffee. It doesn't matter what level you're at in the language, you can always use this kind of activity to help you. For example, if you've just started the language, then you could be thinking on a very basic level, at vocabulary level, where you're just thinking about the words for tree or lake or flower or cloud or whatever. If you're at a slightly more advanced level, then you can be thinking on a sentence level. So there is a swan swimming on the lake. There are children playing in the fields. If you are a bit further on, then you could be thinking about how you would relate what you've done over the course of your visit to the place to someone else, and perhaps speak in past tenses using constructions that are that bit more complex. And if you're at a much further level, then you could be thinking about more idiomatic language. For example, we're taking a walk in the park, but we use the expression a walk in the park in English to refer to something that's very easy. How do we say that in Spanish, for example? It's a different idiom. We can talk about es pan comido. It's literally eaten bread when something is a piece of cake or a walk in the park. So there are always different levels on which you can use this activity, be it at a very basic level or a much more advanced level. It's time to leave Culzean. I hope you've enjoyed wandering around the park with me, and that it's given you some ideas as to how you can use what's around you to help you practice your languages, even if you're not necessarily in the country where that language is spoken. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. We'd love to hear from you. Post your comments and let us know what your language learning tips are. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about Coffee Break Languages, and if you'd like more language learning content, tips and tricks, then you can subscribe to the Coffee Break Languages channel here on YouTube. That's it for now. Vielen Dank, merci beaucoup, muchas gracias, grazie molte, Christopoli, and merci beaucoup. Allez, salut!